So podcast, not necessarily just a buzzword, but really is becoming an awesome piece of your toolkit. So let me make sense of this. I just recently ran into an article from Descript, which is a podcasting tool, transcription tool, whatever is a good use case for you. But I love what their blog says on podcasting by the numbers. You can see this is just from stats from a recent survey they did in 2024. But one big number that they highlighted, what was driving this huge growth from podcasting that started in the early 2000s, think about that, but really like thinking from a 80%. So think about that. 80% of Americans are now familiar with podcasting. So this is up 5% from 2020. We all know what happened in 2020, which probably encouraged this surge of podcasting. But taking from that number and knowing that like throughout the other parts of the data, like it's mixed, it's evenly mixed. So male, female, demographics, you name it, it's distributed evenly, which creates an incredible platform for you as a content creator, you as a brand or brand manager working in marketing, has an awesome opportunity to connect in a unique way with your audience. And so that's why I think podcasting is like just an incredible tactic inside of the tool belt. It's just more accessible, it's more accepted, but also thinking of this increase, 5% of Americans, think about the American population of 300 plus million, 5% of that, that's millions of people that are just like willing and interested in podcasting, period. So think about the market opportunity is very, very big and it's rich. Where podcasting also comes in, like I said, it's accessible, it's accepted, but also you're able to create other content from just one podcast episode. I know one thing that Rockwell has done podcast in different segments of our business, and this is something I love seeing. And we even did just a state of the industry podcast that was on a big report that we do every year for different industry verticals, whether that's just manufacturing as a whole or specific in automotive, life sciences, consumer packaged goods, you name it. But I think that's an awesome use case for that. Or if you've got a personality within your team or within your organization, or a personality that you partner with within the industry, that's something we've done with Automation Chat. And I know we've seen various levels of success with these. Again, just another nice way just to connect with your audience in a different way that creates other content down from there. One other smaller example of this is like Spock Automation, another company I used to work for. They took an early stance on this, on just doing short form podcasts, short form videos, but also just participating in other industry podcasts. It's another way to kind of showcase expertise. And if you've got an industry community group that you're a part of, Exit 5, or it used to be the Dave Gearhart Marketing Group or whatever it used to be, but and that's another one of those personality brands that adds wisdom that's very, very niche down. This one's specifically into B2B marketing leaders or B2B marketing. That's something I've just noticed and followed through the years. And one incredible thing that I know Dave has done with Exit 5 podcast is there's so much intel and so much insights coming from just one show. And boom, you've got newsletter content, blog content, white paper inputs, and research, you name it, galore. And the video content that comes from this, again, gives you so much of an opportunity to connect with your audience in a unique way. Another one that I've seen that I've enjoyed is two guys in marketing that I look up to a lot, Robert Rose and Joe Pulizzi. Both came out of the Content Marketing Institute and used to run Content Marketing World and all that kind of fun stuff. And they belong to the HubSpot podcast network through This Old Marketing. And it's something they do every Friday. And it's consistent programming. And they've got just a couple of nuggets that they share every Friday. And it's just something that I look forward to when it pops up in my LinkedIn feed. I'll listen to it, and they bring just bite size. They have a nice agenda set up. And again, they've got some ad placements in there. That's something that the research from Descript laid out as well, is like even ad placements are more favorable within podcasts. And you can make it more natural. Some people are pretty jarring with it, but those have a natural fit. Ad placements, sponsorships, you name it, are more accepted within a podcast. And that's something to consider too if you're a brand. if you're wanting to do this as an internal podcast or an external podcast, I would consider it. One thing that I took away from this podcast episode of This Old Marketing was the rise of personalities, not only just within brands, but like the personalities that can be a part of media companies. And if you think about the Kelsey brothers with their New Heights podcast, I know this is old news or a couple of weeks old, but one thing that Joe and Robert talked about on This Old Marketing was the idea that the Kelsey brothers just signed a $100 million deal with Amazon through their New Heights podcast. So think about, and a lot of people are like, no, podcasts, okay. But I remember in 2020, people were like, no, I don't listen to podcasts. But those numbers continue to just skyrocket with the amount of monthly active listeners of a podcast, but also the listen through. If you're dedicated to a podcast, you're probably going to listen to a huge majority of it. That's what the data shows from the Descript article as well. So think about that. If you're on the fence of thinking a podcast, hey, draft out maybe like your first 30 episodes and try to execute as much of those as possible. And worst case scenario, you walk away with a ton of content that you have created that you can then repurpose for your brand or for whether that's you working inside of a brand or you personally for your brand. So think about that. It may be worth $100 million one day. Who knows? But that's just a quick thing I just wanted to throw together for thinking about podcast as something to add as a successful tool inside of your marketing tool belt. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'd love to hear if you've got a podcast coming up or if you've got some recommendations. Throw that in the chat below. And happy podcasting. See ya.